you're like me, you spend lots of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times to hunt will be. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters, and stands at the nexus of machine learning and white-tailed deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS-collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've been using the iOS app this season, and it has replaced all my other mapping tools. Visit SpartanForge.ai and sign up today, or head to your iOS or Android app store. Use the promo code TRUTH to save some money and download it today. Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things you can actually buy that will help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This is the reason why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation, instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current core setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. Welcome to the Truth From a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Spartan Forge. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 313. Today I'm joined by my buddy Jacob Emery to talk about his Thanksgiving Day buck and his Tennessee Velvet stud. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're feeling fine. I almost said happy Thursday. I got my days mixed up. You'd think after like 7 years of doing this, I would remember what day these podcasts have come out on consistently for 7 years. But sometimes the mind just wanders and you forget what day of the week it is or what day of the week that you're actually putting stuff out. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Hope everyone's feeling fine out there. Gun season in PA here obviously is in way full swing. Had the second kind of week of that, or second weekend of that. Was planning to go out and hunt the North Peace this past weekend, but the weather just wasn't going to cooperate on Saturday. Got some real kind of piss and rain. The kind of, I don't mind hunting a little rain, but you know what I don't want to do is just basically sit in a soaker all day, and that's kind of what we had going on. And truth be told, I think I overdid it at jiu-jitsu the past week, going to many open mats and getting my ass kicked many times. And I think the old body, it hurt to sleep. We'll put it that way. Like Thursday night, I didn't sleep real well because I hurt all over and could not get comfortable to fall asleep. So I thought maybe it was a good time for me to just take a day and relax. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just have a really short upfront here today and just kind of get to it. One thing I do want to make mention of, though, as you're picking stuff up for Christmas, whether it's for, someone or whether you are maybe in the mood to maybe buy something for yourself. If you're local, be sure you're checking out my buddies over at Bob and AJ's. Bunch of cool guys over there. That's where I always get my bow tuned, where I get my bow from. Bunch of good dudes over there. So if you're in the local area and looking just to pick up some archery equipment just in general, that's a great place to go if you were looking for a local store to support. Otherwise, you can support the partners that have been supporting this podcast for a long time. So the guys from Spartan Forge and Exodus, Tethered, are all places to check out and help support this show. So anyway, with that, we're going to go ahead and jump to today's show. Have my good buddy Jacob Emery on. Jacob was on last year. He killed a really great deer with kind of like a hard to access area that we talked about. And this year he had some really good luck, but it's one of those things where, his season kind of started off with a bang, and some of us might kind of experience that, whether we're on a Western hunt or whatever, and you kind of have that first taste of early success. Maybe it's a velvet buck or whatever that you have on a bed to food pattern where things are a little bit more predictable. And then you get into the throes of the whitetail season of like October, November, and it just starts to grind, and you feel like, man, I may never release another arrow this year. And sometimes you feel like maybe there aren't even a deer in the area that you're hunting. And Jacob kind of hit that where, his season just kind of became a grind. He had some great had a great hunt in Tennessee in the early part of the year during the velvet season, and that was a really meaningful hunt, and we talked about that. And then he kind of went into the rest of his season. It just was a grinder, and just doing all the things you plan to do and working your plan, and being mobile and adapting your strategies and stuff like that. And what I kind of like about Jacob is when we talk about this stuff, he fully recognizes that, man. Part of it is you do your due diligence and you put the work in, but there is an element of luck that is part of this. That if you don't have it, it just doesn't matter. You can do all the stuff right that you want to do, but if that element of luck isn't on your side on a particular day, whether it's you may not see a deer, or it might just be you see one and you just don't get the shot opportunity, or whatever it is, there's a lot of things outside of our control when it comes to filling a tag, and he always kind of recognizes that, and that's always refreshing. So, and anyway, as his season was grinding on, he, I don't want to say he took a Hail Mary, but he went back to the well, so to speak, to a place that he was familiar with. A little bit different access this year based on some weather conditions and stuff like that. And went out Thanksgiving morning, and let's just say he was late to Thanksgiving dinner, and he had a really good reason for that. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into today's show. If you want to check out the video, he filmed all this stuff. So his YouTube channel is DO3 Outdoors. It stands for Dad of Three Outdoors. So check out his YouTube channel. Check out the video. This hunt is on there. I believe the velvet hunt is on there as well. And he does a killer job of being authentic and just bringing you the straight hunting dope, so to speak. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. As always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truths from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I have on a two-time offender. I've got my good buddy on, Mr. Jacob Emery. What's going on, brother?
If I'm honest, I'm sitting here in my 8-year-old girl's little room, decorated with unicorns, because my 2-year-old is downstairs acting like a hoodlum, and there's nowhere quiet in the house.
That's awesome. Don't lie, man. That's your sanctuary. You like those unicorns, don't you?
It is very peaceful in here. Lots of rainbows, lots of decorations.
Right. It's funny, man, how like your kids go through those different phases. My daughter's 14 now. And so, we went through that phase of like, just everything under the sun, like she could possibly hang up of any variety was like just all over her room. And now she's getting a little older, a little more sophisticated. So now it's become more of a minimalist kind of like approach. She likes real clean lines, spa like feel, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's her vibe now. She's got like the Scentsy candle going, and she's got like I don't know, there's like some other like thing that dispenses like mist that has like lavender in it or something like that for like calming, a sense of calming or whatever. So she's way more refined than I am, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right on.
Yeah. So I should probably take some tips, man. But how was your Thanksgiving, brother? All good with the family?
Yeah, it's been kind of hectic because the little girl I'm talking about, she lives with her mom most of the time. I get her right about 40% of the time, just because of the way school works out and
Mhm.
whatnot. But yeah, she's had flu, and one of our boys has not been feeling well. So we've only had like one dinner, but we got another one tonight at 5 o'clock and whatnot. But the one dinner we've already had, I was almost late to. So,
Yeah.
but it worked out. It
Yeah,
worked out.
it was for a good reason. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that reason. Dude, I know it's funny because it seems like whatever's kind of floating around, like we've kind of all caught too. Like and it happens almost the same time every year. It's always I usually get kind of sick like around Thanksgiving. My daughter, without fail, will get sick the week of Christmas, like without fail. It happens every year. And it's like I wish I were kind of joking, but I'm not. Like I'm just getting over kind of being sick, and then I woke up this morning. I was like, all right, I went to bed last night. I was like, all right, I'm finally getting over whatever this thing is. And as you can hear, I'm still sniffing. And I wake up this morning, and I felt like someone beat me with like a bag of bricks while I slept. Like my neck hurt so freaking bad. And I was like, man, you're getting old whenever when you get hurt sleeping. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how that works out, man. But I woke up with like a pinched nerve, what feels like a pinched nerve, and I'm like trying to work it out, trying to decide like, can I actually go to jujitsu or not, or is that going to help, or is it going to make it worse? So, man, getting old sucks, dude. It's
It
doesn't
does.
get any easier. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So man, how's your season been overall so far, man? I know you filled a couple tags, and we'll get to that. But how like if you had to rate your season like to this point, like I know you had like seasons are always filled with like some good and some bad, right? So like, how's it been kind of overall, just in terms of like up and downs?
Um, Overall, man, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, you got to, the results that I've ended up with, it's easily a 9 or a 10. You know what I mean? But
Right.
what I was just thinking about earlier was like, a two different decisions or just a little bit of luck turning, and this is a 2 year.
Mhm.
Like I was so fortunate with both these animals, like, but it only took a little bit of difference in like where I set up or going or not going or whatever to turn this year around to where I'm sitting on a big fat goose egg. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just it's incredible how it works out.
Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, the difference between filling tags and eating them is sometimes inches, and sometimes just to your point. I think one of the biggest things is just like those decisions you make leading up to wherever you're going to set up on, whatever hunts you happen to have for a day, a week, or whatever the case is. Hell, I mean, sometimes it's even up to the weather and the days you chose to take off.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You know what I mean? It's like, I know for me being out in Kansas this year, it's like I had good weather when I first got there for like the first day, and then I had really good weather for like the last day. But what was in between was kind of like, I would say 75% of it was kind of garbage, where it was like 80 degrees, just not great. And the days I had the good weather, like, we had some, had some good encounters and things were working out. But the days that I didn't, it was a little bit of a crapshoot.
Oh yeah.
So what's up for the rest of your season, man? Like, what do you have? You got some more tags you're gonna try to fill? Like, you got some other states you're gonna try to get to? What's the plan?
So I have a few more tags that are possibilities, but I don't know how much I'm going to pursue them. So I've got my Kentucky State tag still, you know, ready to rock at any point, and I plan on pursuing that one the most. I've got a Fort Knox tag, which is an Army base here in Kentucky.
Hmm.
Anybody in the world can go hunt that place, but it is. I mean, I've been all over this country and I've seen some pressured places, and that is the most ridiculous pressure like you're going to come across. Like it's insane.
Hmm.
There's big deer in there, but by this time of year, man, there's certain areas that you're legally not allowed to go into, and that's where they flock to, and
Hmm.
you're just not going to. You might get lucky. I mean, who knows?
Right.
But no, I still got a Kentucky, tag, and we've got some bow season. We got a lot of bow season left, and then again, we got the last. There's a 10 day season, I think, 10 or 9, late muzzleloader that I really enjoy, and it's actually what I killed my target buck in Kentucky on last year. Was that season? So probably pursue that. And at some point, I've got to go back to Tennessee to pick up the deer that I killed from taxidermist. And I thought about making a little 2 day trip out of that. Uh, but
There you
that's
go.
that's another one of the places where, man, they've been pressured and gun hunted so long that if you kill another, good one, it's going to be just pure luck.
Right. How long is their gun season down there?
So it depends on where you're at. So where I killed my deer was the chronic wasting disease unit, and they open that thing from like the end of October until like the end of their season, which
Hmm.
is like in January or something. It's insane.
Oh wow, the gun season is that long? Like for gun?
Oh yeah,
Oh wow.
they that chronic wasting disease zone, like it's got some good deer in it, but in my opinion, in 5, 6 years from now, it won't be worth hunting because I mean I'm sure the residents are pissed because they found this disease down there and it is taking a toll on the deer. I've noticed over the last like 3 or 4 years of going down there.
Hmm.
But it's getting bad to the point where everybody's just shooting anything to eradicate the disease, and the deer just are not there anymore.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I mean, I always people in PA complain about the pressure that we have here and stuff like that, and you'll certainly hear people, complain about there's not enough deer or whatever the case is. But I don't think that that's really the case around here. We have I think all things considered, probably a relatively short gun season. It's in right now as we're talking, and it's it's like 2 weeks long, and we can't hunt Sundays, but in gun season, they give you one Sunday. So out of the 14 days, you can hunt, 13 of the season, I think is what it kind of amounts to. I mean, we do have some like muzzle loader season, then in October, that I think's just for antlerless, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have, at least in my area, because I live in a special regulations unit, since I live closer to like an urban area or a more heavily populated area. Their gun season does kind of extend for certain WMUs till like end of January. But it's antlerless only.
Okay.
And I can hunt archery up until, at least in my area, up until like I want to say, I don't remember the exact date, but it's like one of the like the last weekend or next to last weekend in January, essentially.
Okay.
But for most of the state, it cuts off, like that late season cuts off like around January 15th to the 19th. It just depends on how like the dates fall, like on the weekends and stuff like that. But um, how would I'm always curious, man. How do you look forward to late season, or is late season one of those things for you where you're like, if you have a tag in your pocket still, like say like your Kentucky tag, or say you didn't fill any tags this year, right? For example, and you're staring late season in the face, are you kind of like, oh man, here it comes, the grind, or is late season, because it cuts both ways. Like I have buddies that just like absolutely love late season, like that would be
Jake
if they
Bush. Jake Bush is
Jake,
like when
yeah,
I think
dude.
of late season, it's Jake Bush because I know if he ain't killed one, he's fixing to. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like him and Johnny Stewart are the two that I know. Because I mean, I just had Jake on not too long ago, and we were talking about that. And he's like, man, he's like, if you get to late season, dude, he's like, and you can find one. He's like, and you can watch him for like a day or two. You know what I mean? Or even just get trail camera data on him for a couple days. He's like, man, that pattern is almost like ironclad. He's like, and then it just becomes about figuring out what's the chink in his armor. He's like, he's like, that should be a dead deer. And I'm the opposite. I look at late season, I'm like, good God, what I'm like, here's just going to be like a month and a half of going out hunting and not seeing deer probably. You know what I mean? Like I'm the exact opposite. So where do you fall with that?
Man, I'm getting to a bit more than I used to. But the fact of the matter is, once you hit December around here, anyways, the best days are behind you, and that's the bottom line because a lot of deer are killed, a lot of them are pressured, but it's kind of weird if you can find an area where the deer have not been messed with. I mean they're just as golden and as patternable as they are in September. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but finding that is extremely hard. And my deer that I killed last year, I consider that a late season buck.
Hmm.
Even though it was December 14th or 13th when I killed him, I can't remember. He was it was pure luck, finding him doing what he was doing. But he was on a pattern. He was coming from food back to bed, and I just happened to intercept him perfectly,
Hmm.
uh, just using data that I had, like crossing off the X's and whatnot. But I don't particularly like late season as much because they're not on that rutting pattern, and the food is a little bit tougher to find in the areas that I hunt. Um, the cover is extremely hard. It's hard to sneak in on them in the morning and the afternoon.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. I it's probably number three on. I like hunting early season the most, and then the rut is obviously second, and then late season is my least desired. But if I ain't filled a tag, I mean, I'm going to be out there till the bell rings.
Yeah, yeah, no, same. It's funny. I'm actually kind of looking forward to late season. And to your point, I consider late season anything that's basically after like the tail end of rut. So basically anything after Thanksgiving. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? I kind of consider that late season because yeah, you'll still get like the occasional doe that's gonna maybe come in late or whatever, that you find a buck that might be still kind of searching. You always have that last peak breeding date that falls somewhere in the middle of December if you have, doe fawns that hit the biometrics that they need to hit in order to come in for the first estrus or whatever. But, if you're banking on that, man, you're really kind of, you know, pissing into the
yeah,
wind to a degree. Um,
absolutely.
but I'm actually kind of looking forward to late season this year because there's a place that I've been hunting that I haven't spent a whole lot of time with because it's a little bit of ways from me, kind of far away from me to a degree, a couple hours. And so I've got the chance to scout it and hunt it a couple different times, the past 2 years. and there's some really good deer there. And it's like I'm slowly but surely start like learning like how they're using this place. And actually, after Jake and I got done podcasting there a couple weeks ago, we spent some time just chatting after the fact, after we stopped recording, and just kind of talking about it because he's really good at late season. So and it's actually up toward where he grew up near like that like New York Big Woods kind of area. And so we were
Mm-hmm.
just kind of talking, and I was getting some pointers from him on like the things that he looks for, especially in that particular like region, you know. So I'm actually excited to go out, and actually I'm going to spend some time during gun season bow hunting that, and then late season, bow hunting it as well, just to see if I can maybe put some more puzzle pieces together. Because I don't think what they're doing in late season is too awful different from what they're doing in early season. Is what my thinking kind of is. So, but you said you like early season first, man. Why early season over rut?
Well, it really amplified this year because I've had about 3 deer over the 145, 150 mark within 25 yards of me during the rut, and I can't get them to stop. I mean, the GoPro clips are hilarious. Like, I'm like, Matt, hey, stop, like, and I just can't get them to stop, man. They're chasing them does, and there ain't nothing you can do about it most of the time.
Yeah.
Got a gun, you fire a shot off, maybe they'll stop then. But
Right.
uh, no, I don't know, man. I I'm just so attached to that early season like pattern and the velvet. I don't know. It's just my thing. I enjoy it, and I'm not real good at it because I've only killed 3 velvet deer, and 2 of them were just complete luck. But I don't know. I like that early season pattern where they're bedding super close to the food sources, and they're getting up on their feet in daylight, and you go through that lull that's like mid September till mid October it seems like, and then
Mhm.
the deer are moving a lot better after that. I don't know. It's just personal preference, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't like. I'm not a big fan of like early season, like super early. My season opens probably not quite as early as some of yours does, but mid September is when
Well,
mine.
that's the thing. I'm in Kentucky, so my season's coming in the first weekend in September.
Right.
So a lot of guys here early season, and they're thinking like mid to late September, and they're like, I don't want to hunt that. And I was like, well, I wouldn't either. But I
Right.
live, here in Kentucky and Tennessee. I get an early jump, and it normally just works out.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so
Yeah, but I do like what the Midwest or people who come in around October call early season, that like mid October. Like I do, that is probably my favorite time to hunt, is like that October 15th through like the 20th, roughly, is,
yeah.
because it's a lot of times like when people don't want to be out, like they think it's kind of garbage hunting because deer aren't moving like they would during pre-rut or rut yet. And so your setups have to be a little bit more fine tuned. But if you're in the right spot, man, it's like you can see killer action. Like I've had great action like during that 3-4 day window in October the past several years. It's just become one of
Oh,
my favorite times.
especially if you get a good push of cold air
Hmm.
and it's on. I mean, it might as well be November 10th.
Yeah, that's what I've seen, because like I've had the right weather like the past 2 years. Just it's worked out like that. I've had I wouldn't say I've had a cold front, but like this year I had what would be probably just slightly below seasonal average. You know what I mean, for that time of year. So it wasn't an October day where you're getting blistering hot temperatures. And then the year before, I actually had like a nice, again, probably about the average for the time of year, but I had like super overcast both days. And then last year I had like just like a slight misty rain, and it was just awesome. Like couldn't ask for better weather and just like better action those days. But man, headed into this season, dude, what was your because you had an awesome season, like we've been alluding to the two tags filled. But going into the season, what was kind of your plan or your expectation for the season?
Well, my expectations coming off of last year was it was going to be just terrible because you can't you can't get that lucky 2 years in a row.
Right.
Um, I don't know. The expectations this year was just hopefully killing one solid deer and just being happy and uh, getting some good content for the channel on YouTube. And uh, I don't know, man. Just like I said earlier, I'm only like 2 setups or 2 decisions away from a big fat goose egg so far, but I've been fortunate enough to kill 2 pretty solid deer.
Right. So I want to. I want to start with your Tennessee hunt because that happened first, the Tennessee velvet hunt. So, whenever you were headed down there, did you do any pre-scouting before you got there? Is this a spot that you've been familiar with or anything like that, or were you kind of going in blind to a degree?
So it's a mix. I've been going down to hunt that Tennessee velvet hunt ever since they opened it up on select public lands, and you've got to really fine tune your like e-scouting because you got to read their regs. You got to fight Tennessee. They they're the most unprepared resource agency out there.
Hmm.
Like they're so they're so keen on getting those deer killed in that chronic wasting disease zone, but they're lazy when it comes to updating the website and whatnot. And I mean, I'm calling like local officers getting answers because I am not fixing to get in trouble if I can help it.
Right.
Um, but it's a place that I've hunted, the last 3 years. Like I said, it's changed drastically from the first year. I don't know if you keep up with the other podcasts, but the Southern Outdoorsman, me and Jacob Myers went down there years ago. I killed a velvet buck down there in 19. I did not go in 2020
Hmm.
because my son was born. 2021, I shot a solid deer. I don't know where I hit him, man. I hit him with a 300, and I did not find that deer, even with a dog.
Oh wow.
So I'm hoping he lived, but he bled so much. It's just weird. But
Hmm.
and then this year, I mean, going down there with my good buddies. I used to be a part of the Hunting Grounds
Hmm.
TV, and they're great. They're a great, well-rounded show. And if anybody hasn't heard of them, check them out. Because they do a good mix of like land management and the public
Hmm.
side. So they're a perfect show. But I've been good friends with those. A couple of those guys were in my wedding, and we all go down there every year together now. So it's like it's a camaraderie thing. So like to me, it's not about killing like a deer. It's about meeting up with my friends and having deer camp, which is that's the point of the entire hunt for me.
No, nice.
Um, but between those guys and another guy from Revive Outdoors, Taylor Philpott, there was I think 9 of us total in a group down there communicating,
Oh, that's awesome.
and I was one of 2 people that killed a buck, you know, and I think if we add up all the bucks combined that we saw in that 3 day hunt or 4 days worth of scouting and hunting, we saw 3 bucks,
Wow.
and you know, it's they're not there. That's the thing, but you've got an opportunity, hunting with a rifle early season over soybeans. Everybody in the world thinks, "Oh, it's going to be a cakewalk." Well, yeah, sure, it would be if you weren't in a zone that's plagued with disease and a 3 month long gun season and whatnot. If they had that in Kentucky, there'd be like 15 200-inch deer killed. Uh, but
Right.
I don't know. It was just a really cool hunt, and I owe that deer 100% to that guy that I mentioned, Taylor Philpott. He
Hmm.
actually spotted a couple bucks that morning crossing the road and come back to camp, and we all demised a plan. And we kind of picked where we wanted to sit, and I just happened to pick the perfect spot to be. The buck was actually on a private field, and Taylor had spotted him and knew that nobody was going to get a shot on this deer. And we like strategically placed ourselves to one we're going to be safe when we shoot,
Hmm.
and like an escape route for any of these deer if they wind us.
Hmm.
They're going to try to get out of dodge without being seen. Well, the deer was in a private field, not a very big private field at all. Taylor had actually walked to the edge and made it known that something was over there, and the deer snuck across 250 yards worth of beans to me, and I never seen him come through the beans. And I don't know if anybody's seen the deer or not, but it's the biggest deer I've ever killed by a long shot. And how he snuck through them beans, it just is a testament to how sneaky they are.
Dude, they are so sneaky, especially in open country, man. Like it
Oh God,
blows my mind.
oh yeah. Like you think, oh, I'm going to see this big, 260, 275 pound deer walking across, these beans, and had he been standing like straight up, I mean, good God, I mean, you'd have definitely noticed, but like I didn't see the beans moving or nothing, and he hit this dirt patch that's in between me and the woods, and I'm assuming it's because they were planting it for ducks or something like that. They're going to flood it,
Hmm.
um, and he took off on a dead sprint. I'm a left-handed shooter, and I had to jump on that gun right-handed, and I was yelling at him before I didn't know how big the deer was. I just jumped on the gun and swung it, and by a miracle chance, dude, them crosshairs were dead nuts on like center of his shoulder, and I squeezed it off and watched him run off, and I thought I just missed a freaking nice deer on the only deer that I've seen on this entire hunt at 100 yards with a 308. Like I struck, and like I met up with Taylor out in the field, and he was like, "Dude, you killed that deer." I'm like, "No, I think I missed him. I can't find any blood." And he's like, "No, dude, like I watched him crash." And I'm like, "Well, I was watching him in the scope, and I never seen him crash." And he goes, "Well, I'm telling you, that deer is dead out there." And lo and behold, we're talking again. I look down between my legs. There's a big old splotch of lung, and I'm like, "All right,
Yeah.
10-4." And at this point, like Taylor knew how big the deer was, but I didn't know how big the deer was.
Right.
And everybody meets up, which that was one of the coolest experiences of my life because you always dream of like having somebody there like with killer photography skills, you know. And
Yeah.
Mace Renfrey was there with the hunting grounds, and he's got like this cinematic camera and whatnot, and all your friends are there. And my granddad passed away on August 7th, and that was, he was my person. Like he
Yeah.
raised me from the ground up, so it was super hard on me and my family, and everything just coming together for that moment, and getting out there and picking that deer's head up out of them beans. It was just like, oh my god, like I cannot believe this just happened.
Right.
Um, but it was just super cool experience, man. The whole hunt in general, just being there with everybody. That's what made. If it was a 130-inch deer, I'd still be just as tickled, just because of the moment. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It sounds like it's hunts like that come together like that. It's almost like they were meant to be before they even started. You know
I
what I,
believe that.
you know what I mean? Like there's sometimes you go into a hunt and it's just the stars are aligned before you even get there. It's almost like it was destined to happen, and like there's something kind of manipulating you or the person, to a specific setup at a specific time. Because how many times, even just think about how many times you're sitting in the woods, and we all do this. You're on a long hunt, maybe you're on a trip or something like that, and you're out for 6 7 days, and you're in the seventh day, and it's the morning, and you're on your phone, because you're fried, you know what I mean? And then something
Oh
for
yeah,
whatever reason you just says, "Hey, you should look over to your left." And you look to your left and you're like, "Well, I'll be damned." You know what I mean? Like how many times does that happen? You know? And I just
always.
what's that?
Oh, it's so funny you say that because I was on my phone and I just happened to glance up at last light. I actually sent a group message to everybody on Facebook. It was like, there are literally no deer. There are no deer here, and I'm sick of it. And I looked up and I seen like a flicker of something, and it was his tail, and it was like that, like, okay, when they flick their tail, they're like, okay, everything's good. Like,
Yep.
and he was going from the beans to the woods as quick as he could because he's in the wide open. And if he had not flicked his tail, the damn thing might have ran right across the field, and I never even knew he existed.
Right.
So
Right. Man, that's crazy. I love the fact that the way you guys kind of set this up is just kind of like a travel hunting camp for you and your buddies, like every year. Like that's super cool to be able to have a group of guys that you can do that with every year. And the fact that, you all work together like that to kind of put one of you on a deer or two of you on a deer, that it's just kind of a group effort, um, is super cool because I don't know that everyone has that necessarily. I have that with a couple guys that I hunt up this northern big woods piece where we don't often get to hunt together because our schedules just don't line up, but we try to scout together every off season.
yeah,
We share and check all of our trail cameras together. That way, if someone gets time to get up there, we all pull the cards of whatever cameras we're going to be by. We share all the images with each other. We talk and text all the time about like what strategies might work, and if someone's up there hunting this weekend or this week, and two of us can't get up there, then we'll all talk and be like, "Hey, man, I think I would go here," and we just try to put each other in the best position to try to have success, regardless of whether or not we're ever going to see a deer or kill a deer from there this year. Whoever is there doing it, we want that person to have the best chance. So that's super cool. You got a crew of guys to do that with.
I'm telling you, man, there's not very many people that would have done what Taylor did.
Mm-hmm.
Two different instances, a good deer on public with all your buddies, and it's almost the last day, and not many guys are going to say, "Hey, I found these deer, let's go kill them." And then after all that, we're all set up. He knew we weren't going to possibly get a shot at the deer because the thing was speeding in the private field, and I mean, he was like super scared. He just made it known that there was something over there, and the deer left the private field,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew he wasn't going to kill that buck at that point, but he knew one of us had a chance at seeing it.
Right.
You know, it's just super. I don't know. I don't even know the word for it. He's just a great guy.
Selfless, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
he's putting his buddies um before him, which is I wish I got a couple buddies like that, and I wish everybody had a hunting buddy or two like that, you know. Um cuz I you know, I'm pretty sure you'd probably do the same thing. You know what I mean? And when you
Oh
find
yeah. I mean, I look back and think about it. It's like, man, I can be selfish. I mean, I really can. And if you can't point out your own flaws,
Mhm.
then there's no room to grow. So I know that I can be selfish at times, but like things like that happen in your life change you. And now looking back at it, where I was thinking, man, that'd be really hard to do
Mhm.
because everybody wants to kill a big deer, but now that that's happened to me, it's like there's no doubt in my mind that if it ever happened again, I'm gonna pass that torch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know, man, not to be all hooey fooey, but karma, there's something to karma. You know what I mean? Like you it's the
Oh,
old
I'm a firm believer in that this year. Let me
yeah,
tell you.
it's there's something to I mean, I think just the simple, you reap what you sow, you know. And if you sow, ill will, then you're probably going to reap it at some point, And it, I haven't put someone on a deer like that. I've done, what we were just talking about, just kind of sharing info, even to the point I ran into a guy at a parking lot in that one piece that I've been, working on, that Big Woods piece. Super good dude. And he's a younger guy, and he's trying to figure this place out, and he's basically doing it by himself. And he was like, "Hey, do you hunt back in here?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't hunted back in there." I was like, "I've got some cameras back in there, and I was like, I haven't even checked them yet. It's like it was kind of a new area that I just threw some cameras in for this year." And we got to talking a little bit, and I just said, "Hey," I was like, "if you see this brand of cameras back there," I was like, "those are mine." I was like, "feel free to check them." You know what I mean? I was like, "take a look at them. Just don't take the card." I was like, "Don't delete anything. Just like take the card out, or even just use the camera and look at the card to see what deer are in there." I was like, "And if you kill a big one, just let me know." I was like, "And if there's a big one in there, just let me know so I know what caliber of deer kind of use in that area." He's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, "Just it's public land, man." I was like, "I got those cameras out. I'm not planning to use it this year. If you can use it," I was like, "use it." He was
Heck
kind of
yeah.
he was kind of blown away. He's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Why would I not want you to kill a good deer? They're not. I
Right.
I can't kill all of them. You know what I mean? It's like, so go do it. And then if you kill a big one, then I know there's good ones in there. Then we can devise a plan together. You
Heck
know.
yeah. That's the
So
way it ought to be, man.
that's it, man. That, and that's my strategy for not getting my shit stolen.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm like, I got cameras back in there. Like, if I just tell him to go ahead and use them, there's a less likely chance that he's gonna take them, and more likely that he'll make sure if something does happen, he'd probably tell me. You know what I mean? So yeah, just trying to be a good hunting partner to those who are around. But man, what aside from your buddy putting you on that deer, what was the key to like how you set up differently? Because I watched the video, and I know you were kind of going through a process and trying to figure out where the best setup was. And what was it about this setup that was like the right spot?
Man, I don't know 110% what drew me to it, but something told me that them deer, actually, if you look at aerial maps, it looked like the beans like met up to CRP.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought them deer they're probably bedded right on that line, and I would be elevated enough to be able to see them, maybe even before they stood up and did their thing for the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got back there, I quickly realized like that was not the case, and actually I kind of hid. I can't really say without giving it away. I know people probably know where the deer was killed, and more props to you if you do. Like, there's probably not another deer like that down there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so lucky to kill that deer, but there was a brush pile that I seen. I basically crawled up in the middle of it because it was the only place to hide, and that's why I picked that exact spot to hunt. But looking at it from maps, nobody really knew where the deer went to bed. Like Taylor lost track of them watching them that morning because he see him cross the road, and he followed them and tried to get a shot on him, and it didn't work out. But you know, instantly I was like, this is kind of where I would want to sit. If somebody else had already picked that spot, whatever. And then you had Parker McDonald at Southern Ground Hunting was down there as well, and
Hmm.
him and Taylor are good buddies. And he decided to come in from looking at it, I think it'd be the east through a bunch of swamps. Me and Parker both love water access, and he kind of had the thought like the deer were over close to water bedding because it's super hot. It's a miserable hunt.
Right.
So he was kind of in the corner, and of course Taylor, he found him. He picked first, and he picked the corner of all three fields, and everybody else just kind of like picked escape routes.
Right.
Uh, so um, it was really just luck that I got to pick where I wanted to sit second. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Man, I'm looking at a picture of this deer now, man. This thing is a hammer, dude. What did you ended up putting a tape on him just out of
So
curiosity?
so the funny thing is that night we all got back to the cabin, and I put the deer, on a trash bag on the table in there. Me and Jeremy Freeman was measuring him, and I knew he was going to be my best deer like then. So I wasn't like trying to cut corners or add inches anywhere. Like I really want to know what the thing scored, and we had a tape measure, like a metal tape measure and a piece of string, and I did the whole deer, and I got to like 152 or something like that. I can't remember what
Hmm.
it was. I was like, no freaking way. And Jeremy goes, well, you forgot to take his inside spread. I'm like, oh, sweet. you know, uh, and then the deer ended up scoring like right at 167.
Wow, man.
Um,
Yeah, he's a
but
giant. 167 velvet too. I mean, most guys would just be like, man, if I just shot a good buck in velvet, they'd be stoked. You know what I mean? But that's like a freaking giant in velvet.
oh no, and I know the velvet adds quite a bit, but the mass on that deer is just unreal, and he's just got it all. His tines, like they don't just go like straight up and stop, like they are curling in.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's a really unique deer. He's a beautiful deer. He had a perfect cape, and man, I'm so excited to get him back.
Nice. When do you? So you get him back soon, right? Is it what you were saying?
Yeah, there's a guy down there taking care of him, and I think he doesn't take very many deer a year. I just need to plan a trip to go down there. I think he ain't got it done, but once you start on a deer, once the tan or the pot is tan and everything's ready to go, you can put the things together in like a week
Right,
or way less actually. But if you just work on that one deer, which I think is what he's doing, so I
right.
need to make a trip down there pretty soon.
Nice, man. That's awesome, dude. That's always a good day, taxidermy day.
Yeah, I
Right.
know.
So let's fast forward now, man, to Thanksgiving, dude, because from what it sounded like I watched the video of that hunt, and but from what it sounded like the season after, like, so you had this extreme high in Tennessee, and then it sounded
Yeah.
like reality kind of set back in of like the grind that is the hunt
Oh yeah.
that is the hunting season, and it sounded like you were just well, what you were talking about before, which is, like a season is just a bunch of different decisions that you make that you're either deciding correctly or you're a day late and a dollar short. And it sounded like to that point, it was a lot of day late and dollar short, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of ups and downs, man. Work, family. I didn't have a lot of opportunities to get out this year. Uh, after opening day here in Kentucky, I had a big 7 point I was chasing, and it just didn't pan out. And I only asked the guy like, "Hey, I just want to hunt the first 2 weeks of season," and I kept my word and kind of left that deer alone and had to find another one. And I really didn't find any good deer on the typical places that I hunt till the first of November. Normally it's like mid October. I've got 3 or 4 deer that I'm going to chase, but everything's been so slow, man. The best days on the WMA that I hunt in Kentucky come and went. Like I said, I had super nice bucks within bow range multiple times, and I just couldn't get them to stop.
Hmm.
Um, so that kind of petered off, and then it got to where I was just throwing a dart at the map and like, well, today I'm going to try Indiana, and today I'm going to try Kentucky or whatever. And
Hmm.
uh, it got real cold for a few days, like really really cold here. And normally I would kayak into this spot in Indiana,
Hmm.
but I woke up that morning and still didn't know where I was going. Jumped in my truck, grabbed McDonald's. I'm like, screw it, I'm going to Indiana. I didn't take my kayak just because the creek had a little bit of ice on it. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever taken a boat or a kayak through a little bit of ice, but it makes a lot of noise,
Yeah.
especially when there's no wind. So uh, instead of a 800 and whatever yard paddle and then getting out and walking a little bit, it turned into about a 2 mile round trip walk to get in there. Um, luckily the water's down, so you can access it by foot this year. But it's a spot that has been really, really good to me in the past. It's where I killed my Indiana buck last year. Um, but I put a camera back there. It's a non-cell camera, and I had this buck. It's the one that I killed coming in about every 2 days, hitting the scrape. Very rarely was in daylight, and he had like I only seen like one kicker off his G2, so that's how I noticed him every single time. And
Right.
that morning, or that night before, I told my wife, I was like, listen, I'd love to hunt in the morning if you'll let me. I know we got family stuff going on later that day. Like I'm only going to hunt till 9:30. I'll get down and head out. And just super cool with it. And I went and got in the tree. Had a couple deer walk by in the dark behind me across the creek. Had a spike come in, take a drink of water, and at 9:20, I was starting to get antsy. Like, all right, it's time to back up. This has been a really crappy morning.
Right.
The tail end, the tail end of the rut is here and gone. I am doomed. It's not going to happen this year. I was actually reaching in my backpack for my rappel rope, and I heard, the undeniable, like that's a deer. Like
Yep.
there's no doubt, it's nothing else. It's a deer. I got turned my GoPro on and got to look in. Saw it was a deer. It crossed the ditch, and I was like, I don't know how, is it a buck or whatnot? And I seen a little bit of a time. I'm like, okay, it's a buck, but is it a buck that I'm willing to be late to Thanksgiving dinner for?
That's
And
the
then
big question there is that.
yeah, and he turned his head, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, okay. I grabbed my bow. I was like, it's a good one. Like, and I turned my phone a certain way, like, cause I film with my phone, and I'm like, I'll get the shot on camera if he walks here, but I won't get no footage of him walking in. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And the steer was making me super nervous because he was walking directly to me, and I'm like,
Isn't that the
please,
worst, man? When they're headed
yeah,
when they're head on to you, because one, it's like, I mean, I got a lot of buddies who are willing to take that head on shot, and they've had success with it. It personally makes me a little nervous. Um,
yeah,
but it also, you get no idea where they're gonna go. Like you have, like, you know what I mean? Like that is just like the absolute worst because you don't know what your markers are in terms of where can I draw. It's like, because if he's going left to right or right to left, or at least diagonal to a degree, you're like, all right, he's going to hit this brush pile or he's going to hit this big tree. And when he hits that, that's my opportunity to draw. It's like when
oh,
they're head on to you, you're like, I don't even know what direction he's going to go at this point. So I've got no clue when I'm actually going to be able to draw my bow without getting busted.
oh yeah. That was the tough part, man. Was he was in that zone to where like I could shoot to the right side of my tree out of my saddle to like say 2 o'clock, okay,
Yeah.
but like from two, to five, it's hard. It's hard to make that shot.
Hmm.
Like you either got to stand up and turn like around and shoot him that way, or you've got to like really push yourself to the side of your platform, and you move a lot when you do that,
Yep.
and you can't hide
Yep.
right now. Like I was 36 feet to my platform that morning
Mm.
for a reason. Like I was high in that tree because there's nowhere to hide, and the tree branched everywhere. It was a good hide, but it doesn't take nothing for them deer to look up and see you.
Yeah.
And he was making me really nervous, and I drew on that deer like super slow. Like I was super thankful I was shooting like 62 pounds right now.
Right.
I was able to just draw straight back, and I knew at that point, like, I'm going to get a shot. I don't know if I'm going to get it on camera, but anybody knows me. Like, I don't give a crap. Like,
Right.
whatever. YouTube's nothing to me.
Right.
Uh, but I shot him walking at 10 yards. And I'd never shot a deer walking with a bow that I can remember. Nothing like he was walking like a decent pace, but he was walking with that intent. Like, he was coming into a scrape and he was super alert. Like, he stopped and looked up and look around and whatnot. Like, any little noise you make is going to throw that deer off. And I
Hmm.
shot that deer walking, and I hit him perfect. I'm very proud. Like,
Dude, it
not
was a
going to
hell of a
harp on
shot. It was
myself.
a
I'm,
hell of a
I'm
shot, dude.
super super proud of myself for that shot. And I've made some bad shots with a bow before in my life and not recovered deer, and it haunts me to this day. That deer had no idea what happened to him. I shot him with a sever of 1.5. And here's the thing about taking shots at that high of an angle and hitting deer high, which is good because you got the perfect angle down on them.
Right.
But if you don't get that exit hole, you're not, they're not going to bleed very much.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter because the deer ran a half moon and died 60 yards from my tree, like
Right.
instantly. I count back from the time I hit him to the time he crashes. It's like 9 seconds.
Right.
So deer died super quick. It was a great shot. I'm very thankful that I was able to pull that off. But I never found my arrow for whatever reason. I don't know how I couldn't find the arrow, but there was a little bit of blood in between, me and him, but you don't need a good blood trail when you watch him fall over and die.
Right, right. Man, I want
But
to go
that,
back to like shooting them walking versus stopping them because I've not thought about it much until my buddy Chad was actually writing an article and he asked me for like my thoughts on whether I would stop a deer, whether I like to stop a deer or whether I like to shoot them walking. And I've never really thought about it much. It's more of just like however it kind of plays out. You know what I mean? Like I've shot them walking before and I've shot them, stopping. I probably stop them more often than not. And it's usually because I'm trying to get them in a window somewhere, but like because of however thick it is or whatever.
yep.
But it actually made me stop and think about, when I make that choice, because that deer I shot Thanksgiving morning as well, shot a doe and put some freezer or meat in the freezer, and I didn't stop her. And so I'm just curious, like what your kind of take on it is. Like, do you typically prefer to shoot them walking or prefer to stop them? Like, I'll give you what my 2 cents is after you kind of give your thoughts.
Well, the goal is for them to just stop on their own.
Hmm.
You know, that's everybody's ideal situation. But sometimes, like the deer I talked about earlier, I couldn't get a shot on. Like I'm trying to stop. I'm not going to shoot a deer that's walking super fast
Right.
or
Yeah.
jogging or whatever. I mean, that's just silly.
Yeah.
Um, but if a deer is walking at his pace or slower, I mean, if you put that pin on, like, everybody calls it the shoulder. It's not the shoulder, okay? Like there's a little bit of cartilage or blade, whatever, right there, but any sharp broadhead, expandable or fixed, is going to make it through that, with
Hmm.
a decently poundage bow. If you put that, like I think they call it vital V. If you put that pin on that vital V, and you're following that deer, and even if your arrow is not super fast, you squeeze it off. Your arrow, if it hits anywhere from that to 7 or 8 inches back from there, I mean you're still in both lungs.
Right.
Period. So it's just however confident you are. Um, and I knew at that point, like that was my last window of opportunity. One, to get it on camera. It was my last chance to not have to raise or lower my bow and turn and shoot him on the other side of the tree. And as alert as he was, I didn't want to make a noise because I can't tell you how many times I've watched, videos in the past that somebody just, mat or they whistle and the deer freaks, like he
Yeah.
freaks out. Like I'm not taking that chance, not right now.
Yeah.
Not at 10 yards. He was close enough to where I felt confident. Like I'm still gonna grill him.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like you and I have the same kind of philosophy. It's like it's got to be an unalert, kind of chill deer, right? That's kind of walking at their pace. It's got to be within like a close range that I'm comfortable. It's like I'm not taking like a 35-yard shot while they're walking. Like that's not me. I'm not confident enough to take that shot. That just seems a little bit. There's too much room between us for my arrow to float too far back or whatever the case is, just at least for my preference. Like what I've kind of noticed, at least for me, is the deer that I shoot that are unassuming, I have the shortest track jobs because I've
Yep.
watched them before in the past. Like they don't know they don't know what's happened. You know what I mean? Like there was the buck I shot in Iowa was walking as he was walking through. I shot him at 16 yards, didn't stop him because he was just walking kind of slow. You know what I mean? Walking down this trail. He just got done checking a scrape and was kind of like coming back the side of this ridge. And I shot him walking and he mule kicked, hopped like 10 yards and then stopped and looked around, wasn't sure what happened, then continued to walk and died 40 yards away. You
That's
know,
awesome.
and so and similarly with this doe that I shot this past weekend, you know, uh shot her, she was just kind of feeding through this kind of area, with her head down. She happened to turn her head like a, away from me is how I was able to draw because I didn't have any cover between us. And then she kind
Yep.
of kept walking to like the next clearing that I had, like to be able to take the shot. And I shot her walking, and again she kind of mule kicked and ran, and she just ran. I don't even know how far. I didn't even try. I didn't even. I mean, I heard her crash, and I watched her fall over through like the brush. You know what I mean? And it's like she had no clue what had happened. Actually, the other deer that was with her, like, just stood there, like ran around in circles and just stood there. Like that deer spooked her, or that deer got spooked by the deer that I shot, not the fact that I shot. You know
Right.
it. You know what I mean? Because I made no noise prior to releasing an arrow. So I don't know. I think if you can shoot an unassuming deer, it's always kind of like the preferred way to do it. Because I just feel like you get a quicker blood trail, or you get a quicker recovery, in my opinion. At least that's been my experience.
And I don't follow, and I'm not real big into the heavy arrow crap, so I don't I don't really pay attention to what Ranch Fairy says, but a lot of people do, and he says that saying like dead deer don't run.
Hmm.
The deer. I mean, that's a fact, man. If you don't alert them, you don't make any sound, nothing's natural. Like they don't have a clue what happened. For all they know, they got poked by a stick.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they don't have a clue what happened to them. Uh,
Yeah.
and if you just, yeah, it's the way to go if you can do it. If you can let them stop on their own, or you know, shoot them a little, walking just slowly. It's really ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I'm curious. Like, so I know you had some pictures of this deer, but when, like, so you shot him Thanksgiving morning. When were you, or how frequently, and when were you getting pictures of him? Like, when did you notice him? I guess is what I'm asking.
So I went in that very first hunt. I don't know if you watched the other video, but I went in on either November 1st or 2nd.
Hmm.
Bought my and I kayaked in. I took two cameras with me. I put one where, like, people, if they were going to walk in, like they were going to walk past my camera, it was basically just monitoring pressure. And I still had never got a person on that camera. Then the other one I put over a historical scrape.
Right.
And I picked him up within days and whatnot. And I noticed like he was a 2 to 3 dayer. Like he would hit it. It was almost at night, almost every time. And then I hunted. Let's see, November, I think 18th. I went in and hunted. I took off a couple hours off of work and went in there and hunted that morning. I pulled the card. I'm like, holy crap! Like he was in daylight following a doe on the 16th, and it seemed like every time, like or from the 2nd to the 16th, it was at least every 2 or 3 days I'd
Hmm.
get him on camera. And then I got him on camera the day before I went in there because I pulled the card, after I killed him and whatnot. He was in there the day before, and then of course it was all nighttime activity from the 16th till the day I killed him.
Okay.
So it was really neat that he finally was walking. He was going to walk in there and mess with that, 9:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving Day in the daylight. Like, really appreciate that, bud.
Right. I know. I was just thinking. I was like, I was going to ask you, and you may not know. I don't know if you maybe have a hypothesis, but what do you think? Because if he was nocturnal prior to that, just like on that camera, right? What do you think made him, get up and kind of move through that area in daylight just that particular morning? What, like, did the weather change all of a sudden? Did you have like a big weather shift or anything like that maybe changed his movement?
No, it was actually pretty warm that morning.
Hmm.
Or it was cold. It was cool. Like it was 32 degrees, but it was going to get up to 65 that day.
Hmm.
There wasn't any no fronts changing or anything like that. I believe that place, like I said, it ages like fine wine, man. Like the more gun pressure, the more people around, the more they feel comfortable moving back in there.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Everybody talks about how they hunt 3 or 4 miles from the road, and you got to go uphill both ways and whatnot. Like this place it is a pain in the ass to get into. Like that's no joke.
Right.
You go work to get in there, and the deer can act like deer back there as long as you're very careful with your access, where you walk, what you disturb when you're in there. You ain't gonna booger them deer up too much.
Right.
Uh, but I think it's just a freaking nature thing, man. It just happened to come through there, and there's no tellings. I want to say this to everybody out there: I put way too much thought in on trail cameras, and you shouldn't, because I sat over a cell camera a couple weeks ago in Kentucky. I did not get a single picture all morning long on it, but I saw over 33 deer that day,
Hmm.
multiple bucks, and they never walked in front of the. So there's no telling how many times that deer has walked in and walked maybe just on this side of that camera, walking that slough line and didn't freshen that scrape or whatever. So
Hmm.
maybe he was just freshening it at night and he was cruising through there. He was all by himself. So I don't really know what his intentions were, but he was heading right to it. He was only like 6 or 7 yards from it when I shot him. So, and he was
Hmm.
going to walk right in front of my camera this time. So
Right.
I'm not
Right.
real sure what his demeanor was.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right when you talk about how much stock you put into camera. I mean, I think they're an incredibly valuable tool, as far as, when you can't be in a spot, being able to monitor at least a portion of it. But I've done the same thing where I've actually been in a tree where I could see my camera setup and have watched deer, and not intentionally because they don't know the camera's there, because I usually hang mine high and there's no, and like most of the spots I go to, they might be hanging all year without me ever going in there. I might go in there but once or twice to hunt, in the general area. And so there's no like humans sent in there to tell them that it's there or anything like that. But it's just the way that they're traveling. They're just kind of skirting it. Maybe they got a little bit, in the one setup, maybe they got a little bit of a north wind and they can actually check that scrape without actually going to it. They just kind of go to the south of it. You know what I mean? And things like that. And I've actually watched it happen where I'm like, oh, there's a deer. Oh, cool. It sent check that scrape. Awesome. Didn't hit it. It went right behind my camera. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like you would not know that, that there's a buck in there. Like there's the one I had encounter with on the 18th of October this year. Like I had one picture of that deer in daylight, and I want to say it was like it might have been the very end of September. Like this big community scrape that is awesome every year, and I guarantee you that deer was in there more than just the 18th when I saw him. I've never had another single picture of that deer the entire season, but he came in and bedded 40 yards from me on the 18th of October, and I watched him for 2 hours bedded downwind of that
Yep.
scrape. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you can't tell me that deer's not spending more time in there. If he's so comfortable he's going to come in bed, you can't tell me he's not been in there more than one time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, you got to kind of take, the info you get from your cameras plus what you know about the area, plus what you know about, the general kind of area from scouting, deer sign, how they're using it and stuff like that to put your plan together. Cause if you're doing it all based on cameras, it's like I said, they're a valuable tool, but they can tell you a false story sometimes if that's all you're looking at.
Yes, sir.
But
They really do.
yeah. So man, how was the pack out on this thing, dude? Like it seemed like that was going to be it was going to be brutal. So you quartered this thing up because you didn't have the boat, right? So you had a bit of a trip on the way out.
Good video and be able to put the story together for a good YouTube video. Also, while making it, 2 miles out, to the truck, and making it to Thanksgiving dinner on time, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to start working pretty quick. And I put the GoPro on the tree and put it on hyperlapse and went to town on him. I got him caped out and the head off and whatnot, and as much meat as I possibly could. Didn't want to waste, didn't want to waste anything.
Yep.
So trying to, you know, communicate with the wife, like, hey, you think your mom can push us back like 30 minutes or so, or I'm coming as quick as I can, honey. Like, I told her I was going to only hunt till 9:30. I just had the assumption that it was going to be like every other,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So like, I'm sorry, I actually killed something. Um, but it wasn't too bad, man. That Mystery Ranch bag that I use, if you're interested in packing and quartering out your deer. Um, but it was way too hot to gut him and come back and get a cart and like that. There's a bunch of coyotes. There's a bobcat back there. Actually got sized up by a bobcat the last time I hunted there, before I killed him. Super weird experience, but it wasn't too bad, and it made for a adventurous little walk out, and that just made part of the story even cooler, I guess.
Nice, man. And dude, I just want to like there was a moment in that video. It was actually my favorite part of the moment where you got a little bit emotional. And that to me just kind of added like what I appreciate about how you film and like what you capture is that it's just, and I think I told you this the last time you and I talked, last time we podcasted together. It's just like how authentic it is. It's real. It's not overproduced. It's you doing your hunts and telling the story of each day. And I thought that was probably in my opinion, kind of the most important part of the hunt was just seeing the realness of that moment sink in. Everything that kind of happened this year in the entire season all kind of came bubbling out, and it's odd that those things happen at like the oddest times. You know what I mean? But I just appreciated that element of the film.
Yeah, man. I try to be as real as I can, and there's no point in getting. Um, yeah, like I said, it's been really hard on me losing him, and you don't plan for it. And I almost didn't put it in there because I can't stand these people on, like, I don't watch TikTok, I watch Instagram reels and whatnot, but you get these girls that'll sit there and like cry on video and stuff. Like, you had to literally like hit record and cry, but that my GoPro was just going and it hit me, man, and it's hard, and I've watched the video once or twice, and I think I tear up every time I watch it, and
Yeah.
I just that's my thing is I want to put these out. I'm a blue collar guy, just like anybody else, and I think that's why these big hunting shows are dying.
Mm-hmm.
And these little guys that are just like me and you are. We're not. I mean, I'm not growing too big, and I don't expect on growing big because, like I said, YouTube ain't nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I stopped doing it tomorrow, I'd live and continue to hunt and be the person I am. And I think everybody just likes the real feel of like, hey, that guy's just like me, and he's going out and having a good time and killing a couple deer, and I can do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can't be like these people that own these huge ass farms in Iowa and kill 190-inch deer every single year and hunting out of a nice warm box blind, which there's nothing wrong with that. By God, if I had the land and the money to do it, that's what I'd be doing.
Right.
But I don't. So
Exactly. I mean, I think that's what is attractive about what you and guys like you do is that real authenticity of the hunt. And that's one of the things like this show, what I've tried to do over the years is, whenever I'm going to have somebody on or whatever, it's like I always kind of ask myself the question of, if they have a show, right? If they have a podcast or if they have a YouTube channel or whatever, what I always kind of ask myself is, would this person be doing this if there wasn't a camera or a microphone in front of them? And if my answer is yes, then it's like, then I want to have them on the show. If my answer is no, then I pass. And that's usually kind of how I kind of gauge it. Because those are the people, I want to talk to, and I think those are the people that listen to this want to hear from. Because like you said, it's just normal people doing normal hunting shit, having hard seasons sometimes, filling tags sometimes not. That's part of it. You know what I mean? And I just think it gives people that are listening and watching shows like yours a perspective of like this is real. Like you don't just walk out the door on October 6th and kill a deer, kill a giant. Like that's not normal for most people. So yeah.
although
Yeah, exactly. So, man, before I let you get going, brother, I know we've been going at it for about an hour here. I want to be sensitive to your time. I want to be able to give your daughter her room back, so she can enjoy her unicorns and rainbows. But for everyone out there listening, let people know where they can find out more about you. Let people know where they can watch the videos because they're killer. Not just the ones that you put out this year, but the past ones. They should go watch all of them. But let folks know where they can find that stuff.
Man, I don't harp on my Facebook or Instagram. If you wanted to find me there, obviously Jacob Emery, but my YouTube channel is called DO3 Outdoors, and that stands for Dad of Three. Like I said, I've got an 8-year-old girl. I've got a almost 5-year-old stepson, which I consider my own, and we have a 2-year-old little boy as well. So Dad of Three, it's not going to change because I have been snipped. And you can find that on YouTube. And like I said, I've got right at 80, 81 videos right now. A lot of them are hunts, and some of them are like just gear that I use. And try not to do too many gear reviews because they usually videos. And like I said, there's a bunch of hunts on there. A lot of people can relate to if you're just a blue collar average guy that enjoys hunting. I hunt a lot of public. I hunt mainly public. You can find it there, and if you like what you see, throw a subscribe out there and comment. I will reply to every single comment on there. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. You have a good rest of your Sunday here, and I'll keep you posted on how the late season goes, and you do the same.
Yes, sir, I will.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. If you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there as well. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Spartan Forge, Exodus, and Skull Brew Coffee Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.